Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers, and welcome to the first official deck profile of Zenkai series. This is the first deck profile ever that's going to feature a Z deck, so that's pretty exciting. But today we're going to go over Halo Goku, Budokai Goku. I can't bring myself to use the Ku nicknames, guys. I think they're so corny. I'm not a big fan, but I have had a really good time testing Halo Goku in the current format. I've really enjoyed it personally, so I'm going to share it with you guys in today's video. I think it's a pretty good low to the ground blue deck. And I think it generates Z energy very easily, which obviously they intended it to do because it comes out in Z series, right? So we're gonna get into it. If you guys are new here, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell so you never miss a video. And if you guys want to help support the channel, many ways to do so down in the description as always. But today, guys, if you want to buy or pre-order any of the cards we talk about in today's video, or any trading cards for that matter, feel free to use my link in the description to TCG Player. It really does help out, and I really do appreciate it. Anyways, let's get right into the leader. So on the Unawakened side, you've got a permanent that says you cannot include black battle cards in your deck. Now, notice that is going to extend to the Z deck, so be aware of that. Then we have an Activate main, discard 3 Another World Budokai cards, which at this point in the video, I'm just going to call them Budokai cards to save my breath. Discard 3 of those and then draw 3 cards. Now, in this deck in particular, we're playing 54 cards, and I believe the number is 26 Another World Budokai cards. I personally think I play a very high number of them, and I wouldn't really want to play any more because then we're going to start sacrificing the actual blue cards, the actual good blue cards in the deck. So yeah, we're 26 Another World Budokai cards, and we are a 54 card deck, so it's almost half the deck. Sometimes you don't have 3 you can pitch turn 1. You actually ideally want to open with 4 Budokai cards, and I'll talk about that more when we get into the actual main deck. But sometimes you miss it. It sucks. You can still play the deck. It's still fine. Awaken, we have 3 Angel Halos in your drop, or your life's 4 or less. Untap 1, draw 1. Then on the Awaken side, swing, discard a card, draw a card. So that's not really going to add to your hand size. But the next Activate main, which is not once per turn, notice, you can warp 2 Budokai cards from your drop, and you can add Angel Halo from your drop to your hand. So you can typically add multiple Halos to your hand per turn. And then we have the Activate Battle. During both players' turns, you can combo with 2 Budokai cards from your warp, and they only combo for 2k each. So you're getting up to 19k, and it's okay. I mean, it gets you out of 15k attacks very easily. You can swing into 19k battle cards. It's fine. The main thing there is you're putting 1 Budokai card back into your drop to then later warp to add Halos back, and you're also putting 1 of them into your Z energy. So it is a really good effect in leader and makes it very good at utilizing the Z deck. So let's get right into the main board here. We'll talk about it in kind of like a curve fashion. So you really want to start the game with North Kai here to cheer. It's honestly a little bit unfortunate that if you miss this guy on turn 1, you're going to be in a kind of bad spot, and that's what's going to hold this deck back a little bit. But when you do open this card, you're off to the races. So this guy says Activate main, place 1 Angel Halo from your deck to your drop, then shuffle. Then he has another Activate main for an energy. You can either dump an Angel Halo from your deck or dump one from your life and then replace that life. So it doesn't quite matter if Halos end up in your life. I will say it's very unfortunate if 2 Halos end up in your life. You really only want 1 to end up there because it's still manageable with North Kai's Activate main, because typically what you do is you'll play Kai on 1, and then you'll dump the 1 for free with the first Activate main. Then turn 2, you'll dump another 1 for free with the free Activate main, and then you'll pay 1 to dump your 3rd Halo, and then you're able to awaken. So that's why I'm only playing 3 Halo. I find it's really all you need. I don't see a need for the 4th copy. I would never want 4 copies of this card in my hand. Honestly, I rarely ever want 2 copies of it in my hand, because there are many effects in the deck that say when you have 2 Halos in the drop and then 1 in your hand, do X, Y, and Z, right? So you typically want to have that combination of 3. I do not see a need for a 4th, in my opinion. And I don't want to open with this card either. I only want to dump them from my deck with North Kai. Now, one card that's coming out that might be a little bit expensive on release is Bubbles Hide and Seeker, and the only reason it's going to be expensive is because it's a tournament pack card, but this is very nice at helping you fish for that North Kai early because it is so important. I kind of wish it either dug a little bit deeper or didn't have that 3 cost restriction, because there are other Budokai cards we want to grab that are higher than 3 cost, but it's still good for consistency. It goes in the drop to be warped to add Angel Halos, and it can also warp itself from the drop to dump an Angel Halo. So if you happen to not hit your North Kai, this can still help you start to get awakened, but again, you really do want to hit that North Kai. So just an important consistency piece there. Now let's talk about the Angel Halo lineup. Olibu, he's a fine card. You can play him from the warp if you really need to. It's a 15k, so okay at attacking unisons, okay at attacking leaders. What I do want to mention though is that typically in the game, bouncing removal that sends the card back to the opponent's hand has not been very good, because your opponent can either replay it next turn rather cheaply or combo the card, whatever. but this type of removal is actually now very, very good against Z battle cards because they don't go back to the hand or even back to the Z deck. They get removed from the game as soon as they are removed from the board. So this has actually become a little bit better of a form of removal, at least against Z battle cards. But yeah, he's a fine card. Then we have Sarda, which is this deck's Floodgate. So what I want to mention here is that I'm not playing Sensu Bean in the deck, and that's because we have a total of 7 Floodgates. It could even be 8 if you wanted to bump Heroic Prospect up. And I feel like in a deck that's very Floodgate heavy for blue, you don't really need Bean. There is one dual attacker in the deck where Bean would be pretty nice, but I really haven't missed it, to be honest. I don't miss Bean in my playtest sessions, so that's just my 2 cents in the matter. But yeah, Sarda punishes small guys from attacking, and SS2 Trunks punishes tall guys from attacking, so it honestly feels like a really nice balance of Floodgates. Then we have Majoran. He lets you add any Budokai card from your warp to your hand, because what's going to happen is when you do actually open the 3 Budokai cards that you want to pitch early, they're cards that you typically want to hold on to, but you have to pitch them for your Leader's Activate main, right? You just need to start cycling through your deck like that. So this guy's really nice at allowing you to recycle the ones that you need that are currently in your warp, so he's really good for that. Oh yeah, and speaking of which, you actually want to start the game with 4 Budokai cards, one of which being a Kai that you don't want to pitch. You want to play this card, and then ideally you'll have 3 different Budokai cards in your hand, so that you can use the Unawakened Leader's Activate main. That's your ideal opener. But yeah, early on, I will keep copies of Kai, I will keep copies of Bubbles. So before I get into like the sort of boss monster-esque Budokai cards, I do want to talk about the fact that I'm playing Hit Unison. So this is a 2-cost Unison. I feel like a 2-cost Unison fits into the curve very, very nicely because this deck does have its own turn 3 play in the form of Goku Pikkon Dead Heat. So why Hit Unison? Many people have recommended to me to try out 17-18 Unison from the Gamma deck, and while I think that is a great Unison, the deck itself, like outside of main deck cards, is not great at increasing hand size. Like, yes, you can add multiple Halos to your hand per turn, but that is not really a valuable card in your hand. It's really just a card that you get to make free usage of for discard costs. Like, discard costs are very good in this deck because you can always add Angel Halos back after using them for discard costs, but I want to actually increase the overall size of my hand. Hit is going to be very good at doing that. Plus, the deck is already very good at establishing Z energy because the Leaders Activate battle. So I don't feel a need to generate extra Z energy with 17-18 Unison. That's why I like Hit. Also, the curve is very nice because if you hit Kai on turn 1, you can awaken turn 2, you can tap out for Hit, and you can very easily have Sparking 5 if you manage to have the 3 Budokai cards in your opening hand for the Activate main. Then if your opponent tries to clear your Hit Unison, you can Sparking D-Magic, go down to 5 life, untap 2 energy. If they attack again, you can negate with Sarda, you can negate with Heroic Prospect, and it's actually pretty easy for you to allow your Hit Unison to live if you manage to have a good opener, which again is unfortunately very important for this deck. If you don't have a good opener, it's going to be a rough game, but when you do have a good opener, you are rolling on all cylinders and it feels pretty good. So that's why I'm playing Hit Unison. I'm sure 17-18 is fine in this deck, but I just don't feel a need to establish more Z energy. And then we have 2 copies of Boo just because it's the best blue Unison in the game. If you're not playing a deck that's main Unison is Boo, you want to be playing at least 2 copies of it. Now back to the bigger Budokai battle cards. So we have Goku Pikkon Dead Heat. This guy is basically a 20k dual attacker that removes 2 battle cards, helps you generate more Z energy, and he untaps and draws one at the end of the turn. That's really only relevant for the turn that you play him, because beyond that, he's probably getting removed from the board, let's be honest. But yeah, his Activate main, even though this card's an SR, it's kind of unfortunate this card's only really playable in this deck, because I can't think of another blue deck where I want to pitch extra cards. Like, it would only be this deck where I can add Angel Halos back to my hand after pitching them, right? But still, in this deck, this card is absolutely incredible for the reasons I just mentioned. Yeah, really, really good card. Then we have Goku Anotherworld Blitz, which is honestly going to become a blue staple in my opinion, because it's going to be pretty easy for blue decks to play this, especially ramping decks that can manage to keep battle cards out of their drop. And I think it's going to be a relatively easy task, because even if you have to combo something early for some reason, you can always throw it to your Z energy and keep battle cards out of your drop. So I do think this card's going to be very good. But in this deck, this is always going to be a full board wipe short of barrier, because you'll always have like a bunch of Halos in your drop. You'll have D-Magics in your drop. So that's a really good thing there. This card is seriously solid in my opinion. All right, moving on. So that is all of the Budokai cards. 4D Magic, I mentioned for the turn 2 play. Dirty Burst, very important in the upcoming format with SS4 Gogeta. And honestly, there are just a ton of cheap but high cost boss monsters, like typically 4 energy boss monsters and secret rares that you're going to want to hit with Dirty Burst. So I think for the foreseeable future, Dirty Burst is going to be a blue main deck staple. 1 copy of Golden Avenger. Okay, so obviously this card is really good for the counter aspect, but I want to mention that 10k combos are a little bit awkward in this deck, only for the reason that if they end up in your drop area, Another World Blitz ends up becoming a dead card, because again, you have to have no battle cards in your drop to play this card. Very rarely is it going to be the case that they end up in your drop areas, and I was actually playing one copy of Kale 5 drop in the deck at one point, but I ended up cutting it just because, again, you want to keep the 10k count rather low. And I guess I should jump to Baby Hatch. I think that if you're going to play a ramp deck, I think Kaioken Goku SCR, the one coming out in set 18, is very good. But I think if you're playing a non-ramp blue deck, Baby Hatch is still the way to go, because Kaioken Goku is only as good as the number of energy he untaps, and obviously in a non-ramp deck, that's going to be much less, right? So I think Baby Hatch is the way to go here. And also, like I mentioned before, discard costs are kind of fake in this deck, because you can always add Angel Halo back, which is really good. I am going with Vegeta Super Combo. I just think it's the way to go. I don't find a need for Zeno, in my personal opinion. This deck can actually be a little bit more lower to the ground and aggressive, so I kind of want a Super Combo that can push fast. And if you're comboing multiple things like this, plus any of your like Budokai cards, or honestly any card that combos for 5k for that matter, typically go ahead and Z Energy the Vegeta, because again, like, you can get 5k combos out of your drop for Another World Blitz to become live by either using your leader's Awakened Activate main to add Halos to your hand, or swinging with Goku Pikkon Dead Heat to combo non-Budokai 5ks out of your drop. Those are ways you can do that. But whenever you have to combo a 10k or technically a 0 combo battle card, try to put those in your Z Energy and not put them to your drop area as much as you can if you know that you have to play Another World Blitz. But moving along here, moving past stuff we've talked about, we have the 2 copies of God Sealing. I think God Sealing's best application, honestly, and this has probably been the same since last format, is just for answering floodgates. Like, just being able to answer your opponent's Oceanus or Riposte or whatever you need to answer so you can keep pushing is going to warrant it for 2 copies, in my opinion. And then God Slicing Black Kamehameha is actually another answer to floodgates, but it can also hit other things depending on what your opponent's playing. But again, I just want to mention that, like, discard costs are so fake in this deck, because not only does this card draw a card on activation, which is great, but if you pitch 2 Halos and add them back, you actually plussed super hard off this card and never even paid an energy for it. That's really, really good. And other random cards are good in this deck too, like Protector of the People. Any other random cards you can think of that have a discard cost probably warrant experimentation in this deck, because of how easy it is to mitigate discard costs. But anyways, going over to the Z deck, we are playing 1 copy of Ultra Instinct Goku Limitless Awakening. If the game happens to go that long, you get to turn into a super broken leader, which is pretty cool. This leader swings for 20k double strike crit on its own, gains 1k for all your energy and Z energy, so typically you can even hit for like 30k crit double strike without any combos, and you can pair that with Golden Avenger to send a really, really big strike through. That's really good. 3 copies of Goku Awaken Onslaught. This card is pretty much just made for this deck. You can pitch a Halo, draw a card, gains critical, then you can add the Halo back, so that's really good. You can cycle through these things quite frequently in the deck, so that's why I'm playing 3 copies. Then I'm playing 1 copy of SSB Vegito Godly Spirit. You can definitely play 2. I mean, it's kind of expensive on the energy at 5 cost, but there's definitely possibilities where you can establish 2 of them, but I think the 1 is okay for now. And then we're playing 2 copies of Cell Awakening of the Created, just a really good like low to the ground board wipe. We have a higher to the ground board wipe with Another World Blitz. Unfortunately, we don't have a ton of barrier removal in this deck, but that's definitely something we can tech in the sideboard, like for example Kale 5 drop, something along those lines. One thing I want to mention before we end this video is that I did want to experiment with the blue-green Hirudegarn card. I'll try to pull up on the screen here. Yeah, this guy right here. I wanted to experiment with it in this deck in particular, because his Activate Battle is theoretically very easy to meet in this deck, because you always combo 2 cards when you use the leader's Activate Battle, right? Pay 3, play this. That's all well and good. And you can also use the Activate main to KO your North Kai after it's fulfilled its usage, because once you've dumped all your Angel Halos, you actually don't really have a purpose for North Kai anymore. I typically just combo him off as Z energy after that. But this guy can theoretically KO the Kai, make use of it, and ramp you an energy. And I did want to mess around with this in the deck. I personally feel like you have to create a whole different build to make that work, though, because 1, it's taking up 3 to 4 slots in the deck because you want to play 3 to 4 copies to see it by turn 3. 2, it's 10k combo, so that runs into the same problem I was talking about before, where if it ends up in your drop area, Another World Goku becomes a dead card in your hand, Another World Blitz rather. So that's a problem there, and it's a blue-green card, so if you see multiples, you can't really charge it effectively. You can discard it with your leader, but then again, you run into the same problem of it being a 10k combo in the drop area. So I feel like if you wanted to play a build surrounding this guy, you could do it. Would probably have to cut multiple, if not all, copies of Another World Blitz Goku, but yeah, just my 2 cents, guys. I've been having a lot of fun playing this deck. Where do I think it ranks in compared to other blue decks? I think it's not quite as good as other established blue decks, like maybe not as good as Gamma, maybe not as good as SS4 or Baby, but I do think it's a solid one. If you open well, it can do a lot of really neat things. Want to let you guys try it out. But anyways, let me know in the comments below what you guys think. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.